as fast as we can today.
Yes.
Hello, Tym Moss.
Hello, Wendy Stuart. How are you?
I am well, and hello to everyone who's tuning in for If These Walls Could Talk. Wendy's having a little meltdown. You know I love to share my neuroses with my audience. I can't get the do not disturb thing off of my phone. And so far I've Googled, this kind of stuff freaks me out. So later on today, I'll just go on ChatGPT, ChatGPT for me has been amazing.
Oh, good.
Better than a partner.
Uh-huh.
ChatGPT is, my little assistant that can be anything that I need at any given time. I'm high maintenance, I realize that. Hey, Tim, what's going on with you?
Oh, not much. I haven't even checked, actually. I forgot to check to see what I did this last week.
Well, I have to give a big shout out while we do our week in review, because our fabulous producer of this show, Cameron Cole, of course, we had on as a guest last week talking about his film Glitter Baited, which will be opening in Forest Hills at the Regal Forest Hills tomorrow night. That's the 13th of August. And Tim, I believe you're going to be able to go, right?
Yes, I'll be there. Yes.
It's great. So if you're listening and you feel like riding the R train, the Q train, what are the other trains that go there? I love telling people how to get to places.
The E, the F.
The E or the F. There you go. Be there or be square. And here at Pangea, I wanted to give a little bit of shout out to the wonderful Flash Rosenberg. She's been a guest on the show. She's an incredible comedian, and we chatted it up at Penny Arcade's birthday here. Which, my God, that was just a week ago. Everything feels like it's like a month ago. But she has her regular Tuesday show here, August 18th, Stories on Stage. But she also has a new show, Losing Finding Time Now, Life in a New Dimension. And that show is going to be Tuesday, August 25th. There is 6 p.m. doors opening like we always do. 7 p.m. is the show. I like the name of that show. That would, on the name alone, it would make me go, right? So, I was just like, I chilled this weekend. Tim, do you ever feel guilty, like when you're not working or not doing things for you?
Yeah, sometimes.
So
there are other times when I'm just like, I'm so glad I'm not doing anything.
So I guiltily went to a lake this weekend, and I sat in the and I threw bread at the ducks.
Good for you, and good for the ducks.
The parade was out there, and I could hear the cymbals and the drums, and there I was in a lounge chair. But it was really nice, though. I never did that.
Right. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you got a taste of something new.
And it was a taste of something new, right? And Rose Trentman is going to be celebrating her birthday. So I think the actual date may be tomorrow. I'm not sure, but Rose is not only an amazing friend, amazing to many people. She's a former boxing commissioner of New York. Don't get in her way or she'll box you. And not on Boxing Day. Wait, my Boxing Day is like, you're laughing. Isn't that a British thing?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, our guest is from Britain, so I'm trying to make him feel comfortable ahead of time. Anyway, yes, Tim. Can I announce our guest now? Let's just do it.
Absolutely. Oh my God, he does everything.
First of all, a big shout out to Princess Wow, Mindy Fraken, who has sent us a number of great people for the show. And she called me up about this person. She said, you have to have him on. And of course, when I started reading about all the fabulous things that he's done, we want to introduce our guest to you. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is a multifaceted fashion designer, musician, author, and educator. And by the way, I love the fact that he's an educator as well. That's all about paying it forward, right?
Yeah.
And he is at the crossroads of design and music, from his punk-inspired designs, including collaborations with David Bowie, to fronting his band Slinky Vagabond, to teaching now at the University of Southern California, the Jimmy Iovine, and I messed that name up, and Dr. Dre Institute. He's unique to his approach to fashion, music, and the ever-evolving relationship between these dynamic art forms. Please welcome Keanan Duffty.
Yes.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. Wow.
There's all this stuff on you, you know. When I
We need you to scoot in a little.
Yeah, scoot in. We got to be centered. Okay, great.
Yeah, you got to be cozy.
This is the man who knows about proportions because he's a designer.
How are you, Keanan?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I'm wonderful. Wonderful. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so exciting to have you. And I actually knew you before I knew you because I have followed John Varvatos for years. And not only did you work with him, but your whole background, there's just been a lot of crossroads.
Sure.
You came to New York in the 90s.
Yeah. Literally 33 years ago last week.
Do you mark the days?
I do. So I used to actually live a couple of doors away from Pangea.
Can you believe that?
Right?
At 188 Second Avenue. And for years, I would always, on the 4th of August, which is the day that I moved here, I would always go back to that building to kind of pay homage, because I got out of the cab from JFK and the smell of popcorn from the movie theater across the street.
Right.
And there was a $5 bill on the floor. And I was like, welcome to America.
Yeah.
The streets of $5 bills, knuckles.
There's just money laying around.
Right. But those are all, and Tim will agree, really incredible signs.
Of course. Yeah. It's the universe. I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's the universe telling you you're in the right place. You've kind of arrived where you're meant to be.
Keanan, we're all about the universe here. We can't. You don't want to keep going on that because I live my entire life that way. I have people talking to me from the other side. Yesterday, some friends had passed him. We'll get into it later. Talking to me from the other side last night had me calling up people to remind them that these people are no longer here. I'm telling you, but it's all about you today. You were born in Dorchester.
Yorkshire.
Okay. Okay. Doncaster.
Dorchester's the
right.
other
No,
end.
Doncaster. That's what it was. I know it was one of those.
It was one of the D and it ended in ER.
Doncaster in Yorkshire.
Yes. Yeah. South Yorkshire.
South Yorkshire.
Which is a small town. It's a town that everybody goes through on the high-speed train going somewhere else.
I love it. They go through it.
But it's a great little town. I really enjoyed growing up there. And, I still have a lot of friends who live in the town.
Do you really?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. A lot of my high school friends and a girl called Yvonne Taylor, who's dear friend from when I was, I think, 16 years old. And we see each other. Either we meet up in London, or she used to come to New York in the 90s a little bit because her former husband was an airline pilot. So she could come all the time. It didn't cost her a dime. Virgin Airlines flying to and from here, there, and everywhere.
Nice.
Love it. It's interesting though, because my God, you've won so many CIFDA awards, and you're major in the fashion industry as well as music, and yet you've kept your humble beginnings. A lot of people can't say they're still friends with the people they knew in their small town growing up. So I think
it's formative stuff. I mean, you meet people, and certainly in my case, my friend Yvonne that I was talking to you about, she taught me to sew, and she kind of taught me about fashion.
Wow.
So she's really one of the main reasons why I tried to go to London, go to art school and study fashion. Otherwise, if I hadn't have had that door opened for me, it would have probably been too daunting. So that's why it's very, part of my growing up, and hopefully part of her life as well. It's as meaningful to her as it is to me.
Well, to any of the kids that come from anywhere, right? Like Tim comes from, where you come from, what is it called again?
Well, I come from Auburn, Indiana, and 12 Mile, Indiana.
12 Mile, Indiana. I grew up here, so I got a pass already. But it amazes me, like 12 Mile, Indiana. Tim, came here because he was supposed to be here. You came out of a small town, although people that have I talked to you a little before the show, you had backing from your parents in that they had a hair salon.
Yeah.
Cool.
Growing
creative.
up. Growing up, I grew up in a ladies' hair salon. My dad had a barbershop next door.
So you have good hair.
Nice.
I still have hair.
Move over a little. I want people to see your hair. That's good hair. Wow.
So and so I grew up around creativity, and it was my mom played the piano. My dad was very skilled as a kind of draftsperson, and he built the stores that they had.
Wow.
And physically built them as well, as well as sort of drafting them and everything. So yeah, it was kind of like seeing creativity and commerce come together, and understanding that, you know, you can live by your creativity. And I've always
and
oh my God,
and also seeing something form from imagination. Like to create a salon or barbershop. And put it together and actually create it. Wow.
And be also successful at it. Now, I know you credited your friend. I'm glad you gave her the shout out as teaching you to sew. But like growing up in this town, you were creating like punk outfits already.
Yeah, because there wasn't anywhere to buy. You know, in the kind of early days of punk, there was a store in a town called Leeds, which was fairly close by, but it was kind of expensive. And they sold Vivienne Westwood stuff and other stuff.
A moment for Vivienne Westwood.
So we would go there and see things, and then I'd go home and try and make my own version of it, stencil on T-shirts. And it was great, actually, because I made a T-shirt. Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols wore a T-shirt that said, "I hate Pink Floyd." So I made my own version. And in 2018, I went to see Nick Mason from Pink Floyd playing with Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet in Europe at a show, and Gary invited us backstage, and I told Nick about the T-shirt, and he laughed, and I said, I actually got it with me, and he said, "Oh, get it out, I'll sign it."
Oh my God!
He signed it, and then he said, "Oh, wait a minute, let's do it again. I'll pretend to do it again and take a photograph because nobody will believe you." So I've got Nick on camera signing the T-shirt. So it goes to show.
Backing up, how did you get invited backstage? Because that's not something that just happens either.
Because Gary from Spandau Ballet
plays.
So Gary had got you back there.
Nick has a band called Saucer Full of Secrets, and they do the first two Syd Barrett Pink Floyd albums. And they go on a tour all over. They played the Beacon Theatre a few years ago. They tour the US, Europe, wherever. And they've been doing it since 2018. And so they were playing. I was working and recording actually in Italy with a friend of mine, Fabio Fabri. And Gary said, "We're playing in Milan. Do you want to come and see us?" So he put us on the guest list.
Cool.
After the show, he said, "Hang out and come backstage after the show." And we did.
Nice.
And Nick was very, very great. They were all great.
Gracious,
great guys. Nick was very gracious. And it was all because of Gary, really. I mean, he's a lovely guy. So, thanks.
It's amazing to me because we have a lot of people in music and a lot in the arts come on this show, and everyone's path is, of course, different. But a lot of people's paths are tumultuous. I don't get that feeling with you. I get the feeling like, you had this idyllic childhood. You created these great clothes. Nobody made fun of you for wearing them.
Oh, no, they did.
Yeah. Oh, they did?
Of course they did.
But
mercilessly.
You were mercilessly made fun of, and yet you continued on you applied to Central St. Martin's and got in.
Yeah.
Every major designer, that's the school. It is even well beyond, like, I love Parsons and FIT and all that, but Central St. Martin's, it's a who's who of people that have come out and been famous designers.
The funny thing is, though, when I moved to London and my mum and dad came down and I took them to St. Martin's, it was called St. Martin's by then. It became Central St. Martin's later. But I took them into the school and they were like, "Is this it?" The windows were broken. It was dirty.
It's so prestigious.
It was like, but the thing with St. Martin's is it was the environment that you're in. It was the teachers that we had.
Yeah.
They were amazing. And it was being right in the middle of central London. We were in essentially Soho in central London. And then in the early 80s, it was like a red light district. So you would see, sort of working girls, but you'd also see John Hurt or any of those amazing Ian McKellen, all of those great actors,
incredible
theatre actors, and they'd just be like in the streets there. And so it was very you kind of soaked it all up, and it made it feel that those worlds weren't too far away from you,
right?
Achievable. And that's something I say to kids today. When I'm teaching, I try to impart that in them, like, you don't feel that anything's out of reach. Have a go for it. It might not work, but even if it doesn't work, the path you end up on is probably the one you were meant to be on anyway.
Right, and you don't you try, and you can't be afraid to fail either.
Well, I wanted to kind of back up to now your friend that taught you how to sew or got you into sewing.
How
old were you at that time?
Well, so I was 16 and Yvonne and I was in a band with a guy who was my friend Yvonne's ex-boyfriend at that time. And another guy, Nick, who Dennis was Yvonne's ex-boyfriend. Nick was also the third member, and it was a new romantic band. So we were all in full makeup and, suede pixie boots, the whole thing. Yeah. And they were all they were 5 years older than me. So they were like my kind of, in a way, older siblings.
Yeah.
I was like
mentors.
I was like the annoying, I was like the annoying
The
little
annoying
brother,
kid.
who sort of like, they had to put up with me, I think. But they took me to great clubs. I mean, we used to go out all the time. And my mum and dad, to their credit, they would allow me to do this, and
to their credit,
to
right?
their credit,
Yeah.
They wouldn't like say, no, you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Or no, we want you home by this time. They would just say, and the world was much safer in those days too.
Yeah.
But we would go, Yvonne, who was so organized, would like hire a minibus and we'd all go to Birmingham to where Duran Duran were.
Oh, stop it. I can't. It's just like your normal life. I'm just chopping at the bit here.
It was kind of amazing.
That's kind of amazing.
We'd go to London and there was a guy, Steve Strange, who ran a club. He did a massive event on Valentine's Day, and it was where these four young guys came on stage with a cassette recorder, and they switched on the cassette, and that was the kind of beatbox, and they played these really cheesy synths.
A cassette recorder.
And I've no idea what happened to that band. They were called Depeche Mode.
Oh my God! I can't. This is just your name dropping left and right here. You're name dropping from the day because
it was
these
so
people
great.
are all
went
on.
Great.
I love Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode are amazing.
They're amazing, and there's a new remix out. You're into EDM, right?
Yeah,
you heard the new remix.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So you just took all of this for granted, and your friend hiring, a van, and you're just tooling all around.
So music was your kind of your first passion.
Yeah, music was so I got into clothes because when I saw people like Bowie and Roxy Music, but also bands like The Sweets, who were sort of, people think of them as kind of like, Bowie and Roxy Music are the gods, and then people like The Sweet and Slade were sort of maybe a little bit cheesy or whatever, but they had amazing songs and they also had amazing clothes.
Right,
and so I would see these people wearing the clothes and I would think, I want clothes like that. When punk happened, it demystified it, because then actually you could make things and you didn't need to learn to sew, really. You could just duct tape down the side of your pants or
safety pins.
Yeah. If it fell apart at a show, it didn't matter.
Even better.
It was like, it was great. And I love the New York Dolls, and the New York Dolls, two albums, which their first and second album were released in the UK as a double album in a black cover with their white faces on the cover, and it wasn't their proper logo with the lipstick, but it was a pink logo.
And they're really high shoes.
You couldn't see the shoes on the cover, but you could see. I'd seen photographs of them, and I thought they were amazing because they kind of weren't glam. They were something. They were something else. Yeah.
And
they were, and it was the name in the title. It's New York. Yeah. And at that time, I thought, wow, everybody in New York dresses like that. That's kind of amazing. I
was growing up when they were big, and I was in college, and I'm like, who are these guys? In the Bronx, we would come down. They were at CBGB's, I think they played. I came down, I saw them. I can't believe you crossed paths with all of these people.
Yeah, it's
so I'm always interested in like the origin and the evolution. So how did you get into the music, and then the music kind of put you on stage to where you saw these other groups, and then you wanted to dress cool like them, so you got into fashion. You see what I mean? How did you get into the music?
Well, I didn't. So my dad bought a stereo. It was called a music center, which was a record player, cassette player, and radio. And he brought it home. And he was very proud of it.
Stereo center, right?
Yeah, and he said, "Oh, if you want some music, I'll get you some music from the library." And I said, well, get me some rock.
From the library.
From the library. Like you could borrow vinyl albums from the library. So he came home with 2 albums, and one of them was the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, I love it.
And he didn't know what it was. It was just like rock was in the title.
Just saw rock, right?
And I was like, what is this?
What a great dad.
It was kind of purely accidental. So Rocky Horror, I kind of got into that. And I also got into The Who's Tommy, the movie.
Oh God, yeah.
It was amazing.
You know, and then all of the singles by Mark Bolan and The Sweet and all those people. And that was really, you know, it was the pop aspect of it that I really liked. And you know, as I said earlier, I love what I saw, what these people wore. I hadn't seen the movie Rocky Horror Picture Show until a couple of years after my dad borrowed the record.
Wow, you had the record first.
But I had on the record sleeve. On the record sleeve, there were pictures of the performers. So you saw Frank and you saw everybody. You know, and it was kind of like, wow, what is this? This is like
who are they?
What is this story? You know, it's an amazing story. So that was really the impetus of it.
But did you play any instrument?
So my mom and dad got me to have piano lessons, and I was kind
like
of
every kid, right?
I was kind of not really into it because the teacher was kind of a bit grumpy, and then my dad said, "Well, what else do you want to play?" And so I said, "Okay, well, maybe guitar." So they got me a Spanish guitar with nylon strings, you know, like a typical Spanish guitar.
Yeah,
my guitar
like flamenco.
Yeah, my guitar teacher was trying to teach me how to play. And I was kind of interested, but not really. And then he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to play like music like The Who and things like that. And he said, oh, you need to learn a bar chord, which means your index finger goes all the way across the neck. And you're playing basically an E chord, but you move it up and down. So it's one chord. And you can play basically anything. You can play by The Who, or, you know, you can play Mark Bolan, whatever. And as soon as he taught me that, it was
it was golden.
I was done. And then I was like thrashing around. And then I painted the guitar black, and my mom and dad were like, what are you doing? You know, and then, you know, I'd plug it into my dad's music center, and like,
you plugged it into the music center. This is such a great visual.
Get his microphone and tape it onto the guitar, and like playing, you know, really badly. And so that was I
love it though.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was really fun. So
then you formed a band.
I formed a band with my school friends, and it was called Sordid Details. And it was
I think that's such a great name.
It was
We're the Sordid Details.
We're the Sordid Details. It was a punk band, and initially it was like, you know, upturned biscuit tins with tape, with scotch tape over the top to make a kind of snare drum or whatever.
I can't let that pass. Biscuit tins that you made into
like 2 biscuit tins.
Hilarious.
And knitting needles as drumsticks. And then I had a guitar, and then another friend of ours had a build your own sort of synthesizer, which was it was kind of like an electronics kit, and it made awful squeaky noises, but it was fantastic, you know. So we were doing that basically in my bedroom for about a year. And then we started to actually get instruments. I swapped my banana seat bike for an electric guitar and an amp.
Wow.
From a guy I went to school with, who I'm still good friends with. He got the bike, I got the guitar. And then my other friend got a bass. And then we roped in another friend. We had several, like every band, we had several drummers, you know, like Spinal Tap, one drummer.
Yeah. Right. Especially with those biscuit tins.
And eventually we got the guy who actually had a drum kit, which was fantastic. So we kept him. Martin is his name, Martin Bird. And so we got another friend to be the singer, because, you know, I was playing guitar, my friend was playing bass, and that was it. And then we started playing gigs. And as soon as we got in front of people, I just thought, this is amazing. You know, like the interaction with an audience.
Yeah.
You're kind of all in the same space.
And this is such an easy story. It's like it's the one, Tim, you know this. I got a barn. I've got costumes.
Yeah.
Let's put on a show. That's exactly what you did.
Yeah, and it's very organic. You know, it's good fun. And
the audience was the thing that just turned it.
Now, were you kind of the band leader, the one that was kind of pulling them together?
Yes, because I was kind of the bossy organizer. You know,
yeah.
I would go to the vicar in the village that we lived in and
say, vicar, right?
Can we play in the village hall? And he would say, well, what kind of music do you play? And I'd be like, folk music. And he'd be like, okay. And then, you know, every kid in local villages would come with their hair spiked and, you know, their pinned and all the rest of it.
This is a movie, actually, while you're talking with these visuals, right? And the exchange of the banana seat bike. This is really, your life has really been a movie.
It's funny. It's very funny.
You know, and then you came to New York.
Well, it took a while longer after that.
While you were playing the music, then your friend kind of taught you how to sew, and you came to the realization that I can make clothes that are very cool.
Yeah,
right?
I met my friend Yvonne because after the punk band, I kind of wanted to do something a bit more experimental. And so with another friend, we the punk band kind of all drifted apart.
That was,
I mean, we all know each other. We're all still friends.
Your very first band.
Yeah.
Your very first
and
band.
then with another friend of mine, we had a synthesizer, a drum machine, a slideshow with pictures from like Dr. Caligari and, you know, all the Fritz Lang slides.
Multimedia presentation.
I mean, all bands used to do that at this time. I mean, I was working a slide projector, playing a guitar and switching the, you know, drum machine on and off all at the same time.
Oh my God, I love that.
We got a gig, right? And it was in Doncaster, in the basement again of a church hall. And it was supporting this local band called B Troop, which were named after the TV show. And we got up and we played our like 6 songs, and it was kind of like very industrial, very sort of dark, and the 2 of us wore black, and you know, and then afterwards a guy came up to us and he said, "Oh, that was really interesting. I write for a music paper. Can I review you?" And the music paper was Sounds, which in the UK there was Sounds, New Musical Express, Melody Maker, and Record Mirror. So our first gig was reviewed in national, and I thought this is easy, you know, like it wasn't necessarily a good review. It was I think he said we were migraine inducing and sounded like a cross between the band Bauhaus and an Electrolux vacuum cleaner.
Oh my God!
Which I thought I pulled both of those quotes out, and I would use them for years afterwards.
Yes.
I had them on my resume until probably 10 years ago.
Electrolux vacuum cleaners are fabulous, and they last forever. My mother had one.
They do.
It was a good review, Keanan.
I was hoping to get sponsorship from Electrolux.
Amazing. So, but again, and you teach this, right?
Yeah.
You got a bad review.
Yeah.
You go on, right? And you take what you can out of it, you make it positive, and then you go on.
Yeah. I mean, it was an affirmation, you know, to kind of get that notice in a national publication when you're in a town that, you know, it's only 1.5 hours on the train from London, which is in the United States, that's nothing, but in the UK at that time it was like a universe. There was no social media. In my house we had what's called a party line, which meant we shared our phone line with another home. So, you know, like getting a review like that was kind of wow, you know, we can do this.
Absolutely.
And you know, so through that show there was a guy who was at the gig, and he came up to us afterwards and he said, "Oh, I really like what you're doing. I've got a drum machine. Can I join your band?" And he said he had this really good drum machine. And we were like, "Okay, yeah, sure. Come to my house next Tuesday night. We're having a rehearsal." So this guy, Nick, turned up with his drum machine. And it wasn't until we later found out he went out and bought it after he'd asked us if he could join the band. He didn't actually own it.
Okay, but that's an entrepreneur. There's so much in what you're saying. I love that.
It was great.
I love that. Great. Right, and he joined the band.
So he joined the band. He knew my friend Yvonne, and he kind of brought her into the fold. And she became our manager. So she was like,
so Yvonne was also, so she was the one that really got you all started. She became your manager.
Yeah, she was doing all the planning and, you know, like sending our tapes to record companies, trying to get us gigs. But
you realize what a different time this is, right?
Yeah,
While we're talking, the things that Keanan's describing just wouldn't happen now. You couldn't make that happen now. There's just too much, I don't know what to say, interference, too much stuff. This was like a straight path for you almost.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, there's a lot of noise today.
There's a lot of noise.
You know,
that's what I'm trying to say.
One of the things that, you know, I challenge young people with, if they show me a business idea or an idea for a fashion collection or whatever, you know, I ask them, who's your customer? Who you're trying to speak to? What's your community? You know, don't think about the community that you're trying to reach and how you're going to get to them. And 9 out of 10 times they say, "Oh, well, you know, through social media and da. But everybody's on social media. It's a very noisy space, and it takes a lot of capital to break through in that space.
Oh my God, I so agree with you.
So you've really got to think that through really well and really know who you know, be authentic about what you're trying to say as well. Be real. And do it for the real reason, you know. Don't think about I'm going to do this to make money, because in most cases it doesn't really work out that way. What you're doing becomes defined by the world out there. They tell you what they want from you, whether you like it or not.
Right.
I mean, you know, David Bowie's a classic example of that. He tried so many different things over his career, And it really was the audience that told him actually what they wanted from
and
it.
he had to listen.
And
you have to be able to listen and implement it.
Yeah, but he was willing to experiment, which is a great thing too.
Right.
You know, like that experimentation and trying things, not being afraid to fail.
Yeah, he was very bold.
Yeah. I mean, I've failed at so many things over the years. You know, nobody died, so that's good.
Yeah.
You know, so but without that experimentation, I don't think life's that interesting. You know, we do this stuff at least 8 hours a day, at least 5 days a week to live. You know, and if you're creative, you're probably doing it 24 hours a day.
Right, because it's who you are. Yeah. But you have such an incredibly positive way. We're very similar. That's how I look at life, right? Someone said to me, I was a blade of grass coming up through cement. That is who I am, because there's always another way to skin a cat, pardon the pun, or I think your cats are at the bed. But how did you have such a positive attitude? Is it your parents? Because, you know,
I think so. I think my mom and dad are very, my mom especially is very, you know, sees the positivity in everything.
The good the good in things.
She finds, you know, she'll say to me, I sat watching the sky last night. It was a beautiful sunset, inspiring, and you know, it's kind of very heartfelt, and it's also a great lesson, you know, a great reminder
to watch the sky, to smell the roses.
To smell I mean, you know, and these things, they always sound like cliches when you say them, but they're really true. They're the kind of essence of why I think we're all here.
Keanan, you're inspiring me, because I am that person, but I struggle with it. You heard my opening to the show. I was laying by a lake feeding ducks and feeling completely guilt-ridden that my career was over and no one was ever going to hire me for anything again. That's messed up.
Everybody
goes through that
all the time.
Everybody goes through that,
right, Tim?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, the imposter syndrome thing as well.
Oh,
you know, it's like, I mean, people say to me, "Oh, you've done a lot of things," and I always say, "Yeah, most of them not very well, but you know, I kind of don't care. I mean, I don't mind making a fool of myself or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. You know, it's like." I don't want to have regrets and say I wish I'd tried this, I wish I'd done that.
Because you've tried it all.
Have a go.
But you've also received, you've got a lot of accolades, you've got a lot of awards, you've got a lot of things.
Right, but to Tim's point,
say otherwise, yes.
You put yourself out there to have that happen. So your first job out of Central St. Martin's, what was your first job?
Well, while I was in college, we had permanent desks, and mine was on the ground floor, and it had a window onto a street in London, which was opposite a very famous restaurant called L'Escargot. So you'd see all of these famous actors and, you know, sort of famous people coming in and going out. And so I used to hang everything I made in the window. And my peers called it.
I don't know what made me ask you that, but I was expecting an answer that would be, Tim, that's freaking brilliant.
My peers used to call it Keanan's shop, right? So
yes.
At that same time, and people would come up and knock on the window and say, "How much is that?" And I think, "What do I need to go to a club tonight? You know, £20."
Yeah, exactly.
Come around the front of the club.
That'll be £12.30.
It was usually like 20 or 25.
25
pounds. And cash. Always bring cash.
You had
no check. And so
no license. You did this.
That's great.
And then simultaneously, I worked in a shop which was a very sort of cool shop called PX, which sold all of the kind of new romantic gear at the height of the new romantic movement. And
can you just, and I don't want to interrupt, just for people that don't know, I know I've got people that are watching.
Sure.
What defines the new romantic movement?
Well, it was kind of also described as peacock punks.
Okay.
So what it was at the end of the punk movement, everybody that was disillusioned with punk kind of got back into their David Bowie, Roxy Music. Rocky
okay, got it. Roxy Music. Yeah.
So we all put the makeup back on and the high shoes back on and the glitter and the glam.
Right.
And started listening to music that was a bit more progressive, like Depeche Mode.
Right.
Depeche Mode.
Okay, thank you.
And another great friend of mine, Rose Turner, managed the shop PX, and she actually got me in there as what they call the Saturday boy, which means every Saturday I would work and she'd make me run up and down the stairs.
So she didn't have to.
So she didn't have to,
right.
yeah. And incidentally, Rose Turner is the mother of Callum Turner, who's the actor who is made a ton of movies and is kind of in the running to be the next Bond.
Oh, you're kidding!
Nice.
And
It's Callum Turner.
Callum Turner is a lovely guy. Him and Dua Lipa just got married.
Nice.
You love Dua Lipa. I do too.
Yeah. So Dua Lipa's new husband is Callum. So that's my friend son, and he's a lovely guy.
You knew Callum in the day too, I would imagine.
Yeah, since he was born, basically, not long
amazing
after he was born.
stories.
Yeah.
Well, our incredible guest today is Keanan Duffty, and we do have a video that we're going to take a look at, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Slinky Vagabond.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Slinky Vagabond.
Vagabonds.
It is a pleasure to introduce to the stage Mr. Keanan Duffty.
Singing a song, that's my kind of hero gone wrong. Smile at least, you can't say no to the beauty and the beast. I'm afraid of Americans, I'm afraid of the world, I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. Johnny wants to breathe. Johnny wants to suck on the coke. Johnny wants a woman, Johnny wants to think of a joke. Come on! Scary monsters, super creeps, keeps me running scared. Scary monsters. The voting contingent. There's energy. Keanan Duffty. Wow.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
That was only 2 years ago, and his friend Yvonne was there, which is so cool.
Yeah,
you had to share this interview with her too.
It was in Liverpool. It was a David Bowie convention at St. George's Hall in Liverpool, and it's that's where they filmed a lot of the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson.
In Liverpool,
in and outside that building, it's a very kind of interesting sort of Gothic style building. So it was great to.
And there you were performing there, right?
And the guy on stage with the mask is a guy called Spiz, who had a band called Spiz Energy at the time, and they had a big song called "Where's Captain Kirk," and he was performing also, but I said to him, come back up on stage when we're doing Scary Monsters, and he brought out this ridiculous Venetian mask.
He's so funny. He's up there rocking on
stage. He's really, really funny. So it was great to kind of, and I was a big fan of his when I was a kid, so it was kind of great.
You were on stage with him, right?
Yeah, cool.
And yeah, it was good.
Wow. So Slinky Vagabond has been together like for decades now.
Coming
up on 2 decades. Yeah,
we came together in the mid 2000s. I'd known Glenn Matlock, who's one of the original Sex Pistols, because I did clothes for the Pistols when they toured America in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
but I met Earl Slick through MySpace. And so we,
so
I posted some music on MySpace, and I got a message from somebody, saying they were Earl Slick, and I like your tracks. If you ever want to record them properly, I was like, wait a minute, they were recorded properly. He said, if you ever record them properly, let me know, and I'd love to do something with you. So we arranged to meet up in a restaurant here in the city, and in walked Slicky, and we immediately really hit it off. I mean, we're still great friends, and so we decided to record, and he had a studio that he worked with in upstate New York in Rhinecliff, near Rhinebeck. And, he said, we need a bass player and a drummer. And I said, well, I'll ask Glenn Matlock if he'll play bass. And I knew Clem Burke through a mutual friend, Clem, the late, great Clem Burke from Blondie. And so I asked both of them if they would be interested in doing it. And they said, yeah, they all wanted to play with each other. They were kind of like Clem wanted to play with Slick, and Slick
and never had before.
And they never had
the
chance. So we got together. We went upstate. We recorded, I think, 6 songs in a couple of days. And then we got the offer to play supporting the New York Dolls at Jerry Ramone's birthday bash, which was at Irving Plaza. It was a fundraiser, lymphoma research fundraiser.
Right.
So that was our first gig. So I mean, I hadn't been on stage for quite a few years. So it was like a sold out crowd at Irving Plaza. So
instantly, right?
With the Sex Pistol on one side, a Bowie band member on the other, and Clem Burke, driving the.
You're like pinching yourself, and like, is this really happening?
In the changing rooms with like Sylvain and Johansson. I'm like, wow.
But you are so fluid as a person, even in your talking, your whole body language, your sensibility. And there's a lesson to be learned from this. If you are fluid and you navigate your life like that, things like this will happen.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think you just have to be open to stuff.
Really open.
And also open to rejection, because there's a lot of rejection.
Well, that's what the music, yes, but certainly in the fashion industry, the rejection is huge. The competition is huge. I mean, and you've gotten awards. How did that all play out for you? How did you make a name for yourself in the fashion industry?
Well, I don't really like fashion. I don't like fashion. And actually, Bowie said the same thing to me when I first sat down with him. He said, "Oh, I don't really like fashion," and I was kind of like,
"The two of you were collaborating."
I was like, liar. But I think I like image, and that's
right.
Like, the way let's say Tina Turner in the Tommy movie, the way she moves, the clothes she wears, they enhance the way she moves.
Yes,
and it's also true to her authentic self, right? And I think that's true with any great musician that I love. The ones that are really truly authentic to themselves. And Bowie's an exception because he kind of had all of these different eras, I guess. But underneath it all, it was still always the same thing. But iconic musicians usually carve out an image for themselves, and they're very repetitive. They kind of do the same thing, and their audience stay with them because of that.
Well, that's branding. That's what we when we think about branding. Yeah.
And so I've always really loved that. I've always been fascinated by that. I actually do love iconic designers. Coco Chanel, for example, Balenciaga, the actual design, Cristobal Balenciaga, not the brand today with just Balenciaga.
Right, but the classic.
But, the shapes, the silhouettes, the styles, so on. And so I do love all of that. But I think it's because I've never really cared for being part of the fashion mainstream.
Right.
I've never really cared about success, let's say. I always figured if you can make a living by your creativity, for me, that's success. I can support myself doing that.
You can support yourself doing it.
I've never done it in music. I've never really tried to. I had a record deal when I was in college, but there's never really any security in it, let's say. Whereas with fashion, I always thought it was a career you could do in the longer term. And so, I think maybe not caring so much.
I think maybe not caring so much because, the ones who really do care, they get chewed up and spit out. Your whole thing is about creating. You weren't really thinking about the money.
No, I was trying to build something. We had a design studio. So when I met my wife not long after I came to New York, and I started my business here in New York, And she had a completely separate business.
I was going to ask, is she a designer also?
She was a designer. She had an accessories business, but she was in the photography industry when I met her. And so she could see that I was totally overwhelmed. I was shipping, some really good stores, but I kind of just didn't have the capacity to do all of the organizational stuff and all of the creative stuff.
Of course.
I could manage some of it, but I was just getting overwhelmed. So she kind of started helping me out initially, and then really joined in full time. And I think that was the moment where there was some structure to it. Basically it was collecting money from retailers that had big names, but really necessarily.
Well, you were in Bergdorf's. I mean, this is so funny. You were a punk designer that ended up. That doesn't happen, but it did for you.
It was a moment. I think,
at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely. I think a store like Bergdorf at that time, and even. We sold to Barney's, we sold to people like Fred Siegel in LA,
right?
Harvey Nichols, Harrods.
Those are all like real.
That's heavy fashion right there.
Yeah, that wasn't Mason funny.
But Keanan, can I move you over just a little bit more? Keanan,
you're listening.
Scoot over just a little bit more.
Here, you got all kinds of. He's nice and slim, so we got.
But now, Slinky Vagabond, didn't you a store?
Yeah, we had a store. So Slinky,
that's what I thought. You had a store, a band, and designs.
Well, and Slinky Vagabond actually was an incorporated company. It wasn't meant to be a fashion name or a band name or anything. In order to sponsor myself for a visa to be here, I incorporated a company name and used that company to sponsor me back in the day, like in the 90s.
That was smart, right?
And then when I started the fashion label, I thought, I'll just use that name.
Right.
And it turned out there was a shoe company in Sweden, I think at the time, called Vagabond. So they started getting all, defensive about, that's
our name.
And so rather than go into an expensive legal battle with them, I thought I'll just switch it into my name. So the label became Keanan Duffty. But the Slinky Vagabond name was still around. So, when we opened a retail store, we called it Slinky Vagabond. And then when we had the band, I think it was Glenn who said, why don't you just call it Slinky Vagabond? And so we did. So it's just stuck around.
It's a name that stuck.
Yeah. So the band has had a second incarnation from 2018. I met who's become a very, very good friend of mine, an amazing musician, producer in Florence, Italy, a guy called Fabio Fabri. And we started a whole new kind of musical relationship. Working with other musicians as part of a sort of collective, if you will, and it's still called Slinky Vagabond, and we've made like 3 records under that name now, 3 albums.
Wow.
And Fabio's really driven this because he has a studio, so he's an amazing musician. He's a great arranger, producer, songwriter. We write together.
This incredible. So you're on a whole different.
Yeah, but it came about from a friendship. It came about from being introduced
organically, or an organic friendship.
And continues to this day. We were just all of us, Fabio and his partner and his son, myself, my wife Nancy Garcia. We were all in Italy together just over a month ago.
I love it.
So it's really good because it's based on friendship, but it's a creative relationship as well.
Right, but it's a whole thing that if you are a creative person, you can't be laying in a lake feeding ducks. I'm back to my original.
Well, I feed squirrels. So.
You feed squirrels. We know a number of people. You're a squirrel feeder. I pinned you as one. So you have been really paying it forward. A lot of the things you discussed here, you have students that you are teaching. That is a way of being. I'm going to call it, not even way of thinking. It is a way of being. Can you share with us what you're doing at University of Southern California?
Yeah, so I teach in an academy called the Iovine and Young Academy, which is Jimmy Iovine, an amazing record producer. He co-founded Beats, the headphones, which him and Dre sold to Apple for $1 billion. So with some of that money, they established this academy. And I've been watching them since 2013, and I've wanted to work with them. And they kind of let me in the door a couple of years ago. So I teach fashion, but it's through the lens of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. And then I teach also at University of California with Roski, which is a liberal arts school, where I teach somewhat more traditional fashion. So it's masters, everything I teach is at master's level, but it's building collections and designing products.
How did this?
What would you say?
How did you evolve to this?
I had a book published in 2009.
Yes.
And I went on a book tour. And one of the schools that I spoke at was Marist in upstate New York.
I know Marist, of course. Yeah, they're in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, in Poughkeepsie. Yeah. So they asked me if I would be a visiting lecturer for a couple of semesters. And I said, well, I've never taught. I don't know how to teach. And they said, don't worry, we'll set it up for you. So I went up there in the spring semester, 2 consecutive years. And that kind of got me into, I sort of fell in love with teaching because as you quite rightly say, it's sort of passing on the knowledge that you have, not only the success, but also the failures. And not that a younger person today would have the same success or would, have the same obstacles, because you can do the same thing in a different environment and have a different outcome. But I've really enjoyed it. I taught with Parsons for like 6 years. I taught with a school in Florence, Italy, which is how I met my friend Fabio. I do guest speaking things at Berkeley University in Valencia in Spain.
This is a path you would have never figured yourself on. And I love that you're sharing that.
So now what would you say is the difference between, say, your syllabus or where you're coming from than a typical fashion class or
That's a great question. So to me, there's no point in trying to deliver a curriculum that echoes what Parsons or what Central St. Martin's or the Royal College of Art is already doing. They're doing it really well. We don't need another one. So what we need is actually a new way of looking at what fashion can be.
I agree.
Addressing maybe, sort of traditionally underserved communities, let's say. And one example I would give you is I'm 62, right? So people that are over 60 are probably not really targeted by the fashion industry. We're kind of forgotten in a way. Yet a 60-year-old person today doesn't think of themselves as older or act like a senior.
Absolutely, really, 150%.
They're engaged and involved, and they. It's not like they're trying to dress young, but they want products that
want to look good.
They want to look good, and they want to take care of themselves and all the rest of it. So it's that a community like that. Or the disability community, which frankly, very few fashion companies have products.
Are speaking to,
if you have lack of mobility in your hands, how do you button a shirt? Well, Tommy Hilfiger has an adaptive collection which addresses that community, and the fastenings on shirts are magnets. So it makes it so much easier for somebody that, for example, has lack of mobility in their hands. So that's what I'm focused on. It's not necessarily building the next collection or becoming the next creative director for Louis Vuitton, because I think other schools already do that really well. So what we're trying to do is to think about, doing it differently.
Well, you're addressing other things that we need in our
society. To think outside the box. And,
exactly.
And expansion of markets.
Of which there are many, many people.
Absolutely.
Well, the global disability community is over probably between $25 and $30 billion industry.
Right.
So if you address it purely from everybody's. The society today, unfortunately, has been recalibrated all about economics.
Yep.
But if you want to talk about economics, okay, there's a mass market for you. So look at that and think about it and think how you can address it. And I think it's really important in society today, where we are globally, politically being recalibrated, to think about others. It's more important today than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
So instead of saying, okay, well, we tried to be inclusive or we tried to be diverse, but it's not really working out economically, so we're going to do something. Now we're going to go back to what we were doing. No, let's go even further now. Let's think about it even more seriously, and let's be more progressive.
Well, yeah, with considering society, you're talking about the 60-year-olds that want really cool clothes. Yeah. Like I love Desigual. I live in Desigual for obvious reasons. It's a cool line, right? But think about that, how many 60-year-olds here in the United States of America, and they're hard pressed to find things that they can wear. Yeah. I think that's a whole market.
Absolutely.
That's totally
yes, it is.
Untapped. And I don't know why, because they have money to spend.
The money's there.
They got the money.
So that's actually the kind of baby boomer generation is the richest generation of the millennials and Gen Zs and so on.
So why did they're not being addressed?
But I think, unfortunately, the fashion industry's always been a youth-orientated industry, and continues to be. And I kind of have been critical. I've mostly worked for myself in my career, but I have worked for other companies at certain times. And I've been very critical of that a designer might put skinny, wafy people on a runway, but actually the cost,
14 years old,
the cost of the clothing, that person mostly can't afford those clothes.
Right.
And who can afford it is somebody who's 55, 60 years old, who actually is not that body type, because you can't, it doesn't matter. I go to the gym every morning. I'm religious about what I eat, and you cannot have the body of a 25-year-old.
Absolutely.
No matter what.
No matter what. So think about, don't make the sleeves too tight on a jacket, because a guy like me, it doesn't matter. I've got this is hanging down whether I like it or not. So account for that.
Keanan, I've been a fit model for 50 years. Okay. And as I say, I cover the asses of the masses.
Yeah.
But I have to take that stuff that the 14-year-old wore on the runway, and I have to make someone that is a size 12 look good in it. How do I do that? I have to address the fabrics. I have to address the cut. All right. I have to address how it's going to drape on a person when it's done. It's everything a designer does. But I can tell you there are big gapes in fashion because of it.
There are, absolutely. There are. And it's not just, as I was mentioning earlier, it's not just age demographics, but it's cultural, it's economic too. Today we become very critical of fast fashion, and myself, I had my line at Target for 3 years, and Target's fast fashion. So I what I feel about fast fashion is there's an accessibility to it to people that wouldn't necessarily have maybe the disposable income to afford what they see on a runway or in a TV show.
I think it's great. Why shouldn't they have it?
They should be able to have it. What I think we need to do with fast fashion is, again, think about it so it's less damaging to the environment. It's more thoughtful. It's more considerate.
Well, you have a line. You're doing a line of sustainability clothing now.
We do. I have a line again with a friend of mine, Francesco Michelacci, who is a manufacturer who's based in Florence, Italy, and we do a line called University of Failure, which we sell.
I love that that's the name, University of Failure.
Well, we had to come up with something, so that was it. We sell it. Francesco has a factory with a circular water system, with solar panel heating and power and all the rest of it. He does that because you have to do that in Tuscany. It's not legal to put polluted water back into the drainage system. You have to take all the dyes and the pigments and everything out of the water before you put it into the drainage system.
Wow.
So he doesn't even sell what he does as sustainable. For him, he says, "Oh no, I don't want to be like, talking about that. We have to do it. We should do it."
Right.
And what he says is, once I put it on a truck and it leaves my factory, I'm not in control of it after that anyway.
Sure.
So, a truck can be, throwing out diesel fumes into the atmosphere. There's nothing I can do about that. If you go into a retailer that, uses tons of power, there's nothing I can do about that. So, there's a degree at which you can talk about it, but in a way it becomes kind of greenwashing. And he, to his credit, he doesn't want to do that.
Of course.
I think he does it because it's the right thing to do.
It's his intention to do it right. And that's, there's something to be said for that, right?
Yeah, and it probably costs him, I know it costs him more money to do that than it would to do the alternative. But he's a very responsible human being, and I really value that. Yeah.
So, it's obvious that you do. So here we are in 2026. You've been through so many different eras. Do you at this point consider yourself an insider or an outsider?
I'm always an outsider. I'm always an outsider. But I think that's part of, that sort of imposter syndrome thing that I think most people deal with. You never feel like you're sort of part of the establishment.
Right.
I always feel I'm going to be found out. Someone's going to blow the web. But found out about what? There's found out what? But I just always feel, they can see something.
I think that's part of the human condition that we're, most people, the people that aren't like that, I think, everybody's a bit. I'm a total narcissist, but the people that have narcissistic personality disorder and the sociopaths, they're the ones that don't think they're going to be found out. And what they don't realize is everybody already knows.
Right.
You know? Everybody sees it a mile away. It doesn't matter how great they say they are. Everybody sees it, and they're a total fake in plain view. So.
Right.
Oh, well, Keanan Duffty, thank you so much. This has been, you are absolutely fascinating. You have had an incredible life. And we've got some comments that have come in during the show.
Okay.
Sue Genero, our dear friend, who is also a designer from Massachusetts, said, hello, dolls. Hello, I love this.
Okay. Momo Cabrera, hello. I hope you're enjoying this today. Jimmy Starr, love Kana Difty. Jimmy wore your stuff. He told me when I told him you should be on his show too.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Russell. John Jimmy Griffin in San Diego. Cool that you're here today. Curious what a creative risk you took that changed your career in an unexpected way. Love that.
That's a
great question.
That's a very, very good question.
Great question.
Well, I mean, I think certainly in fashion, the risk that I took, which was a calculated one, was taking my fashion label, which was in kind of premium stores around the world, and taking it to Target. I mean, that was a big risk.
Yeah.
Because in a way, what that can result in is high-end stores saying, no, we don't want you anymore because
you were in Target, right?
But you know, I think I learned a lot from doing that, and Target were extreme and such an honorable company to work with. They were, you know, they live by their word, and you know, anything that anyone has negative to say about big box stores, I would say, in my experience with Target, I don't know about other
but your experience, it was a good experience.
Was a good one, and they taught me a lot. You know,
that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jimmy Starr corrected it to Keanan Duffty.
Richard Skipper, so glad I stumbled upon this.
Richard.
I had no idea. We're all saying hi to Richard Skipper. We love Richard Skipper. His show is great too.
Rose Trentman, our dear friend whose birthday is tomorrow, says Bowie vibes. I love that. And Sue says, great show. Thanks so much to all of you.
Thank you, Suze, for tuning in. So great having you. Where's your next? What's your next? Like whatever your next is.
I bet you're going to be an astronaut.
So my wife asked me if you know, with all of the sort of space tourism that's going on, my wife asked me if you had a chance to do that, would you do it? She wouldn't do it in a million years. She said,
oh, you mean actually the space travel?
Yeah, and I said I would definitely do it if I had the
same
chance.
here in a second.
I can hook you up.
Why not? You know,
I can actually hook you up. I'm a member of the Explorers Club, and a lot of my friends have already been to space. They've done the G-Force thing. That's what a lot of them are doing now. You want to do G-Force, I can totally hook you up. They call it the vomit comet.
I'm in.
There's a reason why.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to go to space,
I'll do it.
We get things all the time. You have to have some training before you do it.
Yeah.
But you would be up for it.
Yeah.
What would you wear?
I once made a spacesuit.
There you go.
For Martha Stewart's.
Oh my God, I love this.
For a Kmart commercial. I actually made two. One was a backup, which we actually needed. And we filmed at Silver Cup Studios. So
over here. Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, what's next? Our semester starts in a couple of weeks. Basically next week, actually. So
that's right.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
And
I'm so glad we were able to get you here today.
Thank
you. We're so grateful.
Shout out to Princess Wow, Mindy Freakin. Her beautiful hat. She's been on the show. Mindy, we need to get you back. It's been a couple of years. Let's do it, right?
Yeah, she does hats for Slicky.
She does. I figured that. I was going to ask you what the connection was, but I love that.
Slicky,
yeah, she's really great. We do the Easter parade together every year. She has a little Mindy.
Nice.
Have you seen her?
Talk about original fashion there.
Right. Well, thank you, Keanan, much for coming on today.
Oh, this was wonderful.
To everyone who tuned in. Have a fabulous rest of week. And tonight, if you tune in on my other show, TriVersity Talk, we have Mickey coming on. Mickey has a new book out, and Mickey Petrillo's book, Walking the Earth, first as a woman, then as a man. I really screwed that up. But Mickey is someone whose career we've been following since he's done his transition, and we support him 100%. And he, he's really quite an incredible human being. So tune in tonight. That's 7:00. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye. Bye.